I wanted to get your guys' take really quickly about quantum, because when I speak to people who maybe are newcomers or skeptical about Bitcoin, now the biggest FUD is quantum, that quantum's going to hack Bitcoin. There's going to be issues if we try to fork Bitcoin to something quantum resistant. Would love to get your thoughts on that threat.
Go Preston. I'm not an engineer, and I listen to Preston and Lynn, and they tell me not to worry, and so I don't worry.
I don't know that I would quantify it as FUD. I think that it's something that the community needs to take very serious. I think that the timeline is the part that makes this really, really tricky to kind of fully understand, because with AI, when you put AI on top of this, the breakthroughs that you might get in quantum could maybe be accelerated way faster than what we're expecting in our very linear minds and what we've seen. So that's my concern as we're looking at what this is. But let me try my best to kind of like quantify where I think we're at in space and time. So when we look at quantum computing, you'll read headlines. You go out there and Microsoft is saying they're going to have a 1 million qubit processor by 2030 with their Majorana 1 topological qubit processor. So you read that and you're saying, well, that's not good, because, I'm reading that you only need about 1,000 to maybe 10,000 qubit quantum processor to start cracking keys within a day or two, right? And even those numbers and math are tricky to kind of wrap your head around, even using AI to say, okay, it's like, how much is it? But this is where the terminology and some of the noise and things that you read are really hard to dissect if you're not like really well versed on this particular topic. So they'll say 1 million qubits, but what they're failing to tell you is that it's physical qubits as opposed to logical qubits. And when you get into this space, logical qubits are what you need in order to conduct the calculations in order to, crack the keys. And so then it's like, okay, well, what's the difference between a logical qubit and a physical qubit? Well, you have a noise factor. So like, let's say I have 100 physical qubits processor. The noise to keep them in sync and to get the coherence that you need in order to conduct the calculations, there's noise factors. The temperature is too hot. You had this vibration and it knocks it out. So you need 100 physical qubits to get maybe 10 logical qubits to conduct calculations. Okay, so the noise factor could be 10 to 1. It could be 100 to 1. And what you don't ever read in these articles is what the noise factor is and whether they're even talking about a physical qubit versus logical qubit processor. Okay, here's further definition of like where we're at in space and time. Today, I would, and I have to go do the research, but it's in this ballpark. The highest logical qubit processor that exists is like 40. Okay, it might even be less than that. It might be like 20, but it's really low. It's definitely under 100 logical qubit processor. That doesn't mean it can't ramp, but where we're at today is they're really low numbers, and it might be another decade before they could get to 300 logical qubits. And to conduct these calculations, you have to keep these things entangled. They have to be in a superposition, and then they have to all together create this coherent, this wave that then makes the answer pop out of the coherence of these things. So to do that at scale, I don't know if it's twice as hard to go from 100 to 200, or if it's 10 times harder to go from 100 to 200. And so talking to anybody in this domain to try to pin them down on the timeline is extremely difficult to do. And okay, so all of that, I'm trying to just frame that so you kind of understand where we're at space and time, and also to understand like why there's so much confusion around just even understanding how long this is going to take. With all of that said, I think it's extremely important for this community to come together and get behind a solution and to start testing a solution so that we can get the consensus. Because again, Bitcoin's strength, but also a weakness, is the consensus that it takes to get everybody kind of all rowing in the same direction to achieve the outcome that we're all desiring. Here's another thing about quantum that's important for people to understand. To rotate the keys from what we have today to quantum proof keys takes a whole lot more memory inside of each block to rotate the keys. This is going to be a soft fork. This is not going to be a hard fork. So if you have Bitcoin in a pub key and you want to move them to the quantum encrypted address pub key, you have to get it into a block, and you have to get the transaction to clear in a block in order to get the coins to the new address. If the whole community, if you have $100 worth of Bitcoin in a public address and you want to rotate that, so anybody with over $100 worth of Bitcoin in an address and you want to rotate it, it could be anywhere from 3 months to maybe 9 months after the soft fork goes through to just rotate all of those accounts over. So is this something we want to wait 10 years to do? I don't think so. I think it's something that we need to have a very active conversation. And honestly, Nat, watching this filter debate that's happening in the community and how it's just like, in my opinion, a whole lot of noise and a whole lot of like anger and infighting. I'm looking at that and I'm saying this is literally 1,000 times more complex and has 1,000 more variables and is actually important. That's where the discussion should be taking place. You have Hunter Beast that has already wrote BIP 360. It's out. Sorry, I'm going so long here, Larry.
No, this is really helpful.
Right, I want it.
You got BIP 360 that's already written. It's already out there. And, that's up for discussion. I think there needs to be a whole lot more people talking about like what's that roadmap look like? We really don't have somebody to kind of lead the charge. And I think a lot of people are apprehensive to step up and try to lead the charge because they know they're just going to be like publicly crucified if they step up there because they're going to say they have this disincentive or that they're trying to pump their bags for whatever, right? So who's leading that charge? How can we get this consensus around this? How can we get the discussion going? And ultimately, how can we upgrade Bitcoin so that it's quantum proof? Because, when you look at traditional banking, you have layers on layers on layers that are completely centralized. So they can go in there and they can provide up. So I think that traditional banking and traditional rails to become quantum proof are actually in a much better position than an open source protocol like Bitcoin to conduct the upgrade. And so this is me, sounding the alarm that I think we need to take this serious. I think we need to get the right people marching in the right direction to get something across the line. Roast beef out of Lightning Labs, I guess, is also going to have a quantum BIP that's either out or it's just about to kind of come out. And so we have two solutions there. Let's go through. Let's talk about this. Let's really kind of, kick the tires and get something going. And, I think the reason you have so many people just whitewash it is, quantum is because for years it has been like this thing way off in Neverland and not being real. But I'm kind of looking at AI and I'm thinking that I think things are going to accelerate maybe a little faster than we anticipate. And if I'm wrong about that, what's there to lose by kind of moving out on this and like actually taking it serious? So that's kind of where I see that. That's how I see quantum.
What's your time frame, though, Preston, in terms of it becoming a threat? I mean, what's your?
Honestly, Larry, I think it. When you talk to the experts, a lot of the times the people have this perverted incentive to tell you it's way faster than other. Like somebody might be investing in the space, or maybe they're running a lab and they know a ton about quantum and they're trying to get money for their lab. And so it's really hard for me to pick apart where the truth lies in this timeline.
Fair enough.
And so all I'm saying is if it happened in the next 10 years, it wouldn't really surprise me that much. If it happened in 5 years, I would be surprised.
Okay.
And this is me just literally like spitballing it.
Yeah,
and
I know. Just based on
nothing.
Yeah,
I know like nothing. So my opinion is pretty worthless.
I mean, we know that computing is advancing faster and faster, especially with artificial intelligence. My comment is that one thing that makes me not as concerned is just knowing that, SHA-256 is so secure compared to some of these other systems that we have and we rely on and trust that would obviously get hacked far, far sooner than something like Bitcoin, right? And so would a Microsoft, for example, release a quantum computer with enough qubits that it could hack its own system, right? And all of their systems are compromised now. If you use one of their platforms, like quantum could easily hack it. Like that's one thing. But my real question is, it sounds like for you, it's a certainty that this will happen, and Bitcoin will need to fork into something that is quantum resistant, and there could be keys that are very compromised and potentially people lose their money?
I don't know that it's a sure thing. Like, I think it's such an obscure topic that we don't even know if it's possible to have a quantum computer. I mean, I suspect it could happen, but honestly, when you get into this and you're like, oh yeah, well, you got to have the particles in a superposition, and then they've got to be entangled, and then those particles that are entangled are kicking off like waves that when they interact, the answers pop. Like, this stuff is so obscure, right? I don't know if it's real. If you can, I mean, obviously it's real because we have done it on a very small scale. But what I'm not fully convinced on is to keep all of that completely coherent at a very large scale, meaning, 10,000 logical qubits. Is that possible? I honestly don't know, Nat. Maybe it's not even possible. I don't know. It's a lot of coherence.
If it is, then Satoshi's coins will eventually move.
Well, if he's still alive and still, has the keys to move them, then yes. But if somebody creates a computer that can do this, they can absolutely take those keys, unless there's a soft fork that prevents the addresses that haven't moved in it, and that gets into a whole nother topic as far as like what the BIP proposals would be. Because think of it, if you did some fork that said if the coins haven't moved in a 10-year period, in this upgrade, they actually go back into the Coinbase and are going to be distributed over the next 100 years or whatever. Like, there's all sorts of things you could do in a fork, right?
It's crazy. Yeah.
But so and think about the debate on just that idea.
Oh yeah.
Right. So getting consensus, I think, really needs to be around, because you're going to have people that are going to say, well, what if North Korea I'm using really extreme examples here. What if North Korea gets their hands on a quantum computer? They could take Satoshi's coins, and then, like, people have arguments for arguments for arguments. And I think the simpler we can kind of keep this, and the more compact we can keep it for the soft fork, and then test the hell out of it, get it out there, build the consensus. But we need a really good champion, a team of experts and people to kind of drive this. And it needs to be a very open discussion. And do I want to step up and do that? Hell no, I don't want to do that. That would be the last thing I want to do. But
well, and for the average person listening who might not be super technical, I think it does sound really scary if you hold your own keys to think about the responsibility that it will take in order to migrate, and what will the costs of that potentially be? In the future, if block space is more expensive, will it be easier if you're holding your keys essentially with
you're getting in the block space wars again, potentially, right? Because there's going to be an argument. Well, it's taking too long for everybody to rotate their keys. We need bigger blocks.
Yeah.
In general, I think I would rather, I'm a person who likes to be prepared. I'm a person that likes preparation. Like, let's not scare people, but let's actually like treat it with respect, and let's try to get something going, and like, let's get something across the finish line, and act like we've been here before.
Okay, I want an honest answer from both of you on this then. Does this potential threat, even though we don't know how far away it is or if it really even exists,
it might not.
Does it change your perspective on how much of your net worth you would want in Bitcoin?
Not today. No, not today. Not me at all. I think in general, I mean, humans are good at solving problems. And I think that if quantum becomes, and Bitcoin is going to become the base layer of money in the world, in my opinion. My kids will do deals in Satoshis, and the dollar will be long gone, or my grandkids for sure. And so if that's the case, I think that solutions will emerge. The people with the largest interests, will weigh in with their votes, and, the correct solutions will emerge. I mean, hopefully there will be a lot more intelligence and maturity in those future developments. And my gut is it's probably 5, 10, 15, 20 years away.
Yeah, it might be.
Until these things become relevant. And, there will be computer scientists working on it. And, we'll just migrate to whatever it takes to have the thing continue to run. There's too much at stake for having it fail. that, I think human beings will figure out a way to, in a safe manner, migrate it so it doesn't fail. That's the bet I'm making, and so I'm willing to have an enormous part of my net worth in Bitcoin.
I agree with that.
Because I think that's where we'll eventually go.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm just not convinced that you're going to be able to build an environment for a quantum computer to have coherence at that level within the next 5. I don't think it's happening in the next 5 years. I really don't. But
I completely agree with the notion of keeping our eye on it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there are a lot of smart people, and there's a lot of wealth in Bitcoin, and those two things I think are going to ensure that people keep their eye on it. I mean, to me, I remember asking Saylor at one of his events years ago, Michael, what's in your view, what's the largest risk to Bitcoin? And you guys know the answer to this. He said, human beings like to tinker with things. And, my greatest concern would be that core goes rogue and starts trying to do shit they don't need to do. And they mess up what is really quite elegant and beautiful and doesn't need tinkering with.
Yep.
And I share his view. I mean, fortunately, because of the way everyone, quote unquote, gets to vote on these things, if, with forks and otherwise, there's a little bit of a fail safe against that. And he pointed that out as well. So.